And on we'll go.
Welcome. My name is Anitha Beberg, and I'm your host for today's Taking Back Our Economy podcast, made by the Community Exchange Alliance. We are a learning community with many years of experience, knowledge, and insights about communities, the current monetary system, and alternative mediums of exchange, such as sharing, swapping, gifting, bartering, and local community currencies. We believe that by sharing,
This is the sheet that we used, which actually we developed with a group of people in Gloucestershire at Barnwood Trust. We developed this together, and you can see the 5 kinds of capacities in a person listed on this little worksheet. And they've actually used this in quite a few places in the community to help people decide on the kinds of contributions that they wanted to make. So, and the last thing I wanted to say is one of the reasons I so respect time banking, you stated very clearly. It's that if you give me a gift, if Martin gives me a gift, he's giving it out of a sense of generosity, and he's not expecting something back from me. But the community would die if that's the only thought about gifts. One person giving to another without expectation. Um, the other dynamic is that I do believe, and I have to believe, I live in a community where if Martin gives me a gift, I'm not obligated to give him a gift back, but I will be giving a gift to somebody else in my community. And and somebody else will be giving a gift to Martin. So it's more about the exchange of gifts than this very limited idea of gifts, which many people have, that it's only one person giving to another in a moment. That community is based on gift exchange. And so this idea in time banking that I might do something for one person and then I can get help from a completely different person is just one of the oldest community building ideas there is, and it's grounded in really solid theory. And so I just the idea of time banking is just fabulous
I call
um,
it the pay it
because of
forward
that.
model. If you
There
say
you
pay
go.
it forward, people understand that it's not just a
Yeah,
one-to-one interaction.
right. That's exactly right. It's exactly right.
This is beautiful because again, I also in our platform, we were trying to figure out, we do ask people what are your interests and what are your skills. But
Hmm.
yeah, oftentimes we get that block when you're put on the spot. So we're trying to use AI to kind of figure out based on the things that you end up sharing or helping other people with, to throw things at you like a random one to see maybe how adventurous you might be. And if you choose to take that, we'll throw more like that, and then you'll discover new things. Or if not, it'll say, okay, stick to whatever they stated was their, interest and skill.
So say a little bit more about that. I'm intrigued. I'm not quite sure I understand.
Well, our software is kind of a combination of everything I've learned from these wonderful people here. So
Hmm.
it's time banking. It's a mutual reciprocity platform where you give
Hmm.
whatever you can offer, and it doesn't have to be just time. It could be money, it could be goods and supplies.
Hmm.
So I may not
Hmm.
have time this week, and nor do I have any money, but I do have a garage full of stuff that I'm happy to gift to someone if they want. So we use the AI part to match the interest skills of the people, interest skills resources of people to the needs of a community.
Hmm. Great. Great. Fabulous. Is this something that's in a beta form now, or is it something people can download? What's the state of the development of it?
Well, I think it's at 75% done, but software is never done. This is why I
Yeah.
had contacted you before and about adding that ABCD component, because it's a reciprocity. It's no longer a time banking
Right.
platform. It's a mutual reciprocity platform.
Yeah.
So we have
Good.
like, we're including lending, like I'm willing to lend my lawnmower because I have a gardener who brings their own. So I'm happy to
Hmm.
share that. and you know, maybe someone else wants to borrow something else, and you can get matched for that as well. I love that, you know, you're kind of redefining what gifts are, but in our modern world, it's kind of taken a turn, right? Even in the olden days of like hunters and gatherers, if somebody who was a hunter suddenly became disabled and they couldn't hunt anymore, or a gatherer, you know, suddenly maybe they lost their eyesight and they can't gather, what happens to people when what society, you know, kind of puts on the value of what you are as useful, that thing is taken away? How can people continue on, you know, like how can they discover other gifts, or even value of themselves? Because that's, yeah.
So you're getting at a really big thing, Anitha, here, which is always comes up if you talk about gifts for long enough. It's very interesting, um, that the gift, nobody has a gift for gardening, nobody has a gift for teaching, nobody has a gift for welding, nobody has a gift for any obvious observable thing that you do. The actual gift is the reason right underneath it that you're doing it. So if we got 20 school teachers in a room and asked them why they became teachers, they would say things like, I love it when students connect with each other. I like seeing, another teacher would say, I like seeing that light bulb moment in students when they learn something. Another one would say, I like helping students resolve conflicts they have with each other. That every teacher in a classroom would have a different reason why they got into teaching. And when you know that, if teaching collapses for them, they'll take that underlying reason and adapt it somewhere else to do something else. One of the primary ideas about gifts is that we use a gift in one way in the early part of our life. We grow up, then we give it in our job. We lose a job, we give it at the next job we go to. That a real gift is something, in older spiritual traditions, that was named a practice. It's not just to one part of your life. So if I have a gift for imagination and I'm a painter and I lose my eyesight, then the question is, how am I going to use my imagination in a way other than painting if I can't put the paint on the brush anymore and put it on the canvas? So in that way, a person can take their gift of imagination in new and exciting and dangerous and creative ways, where if they think of their gift of imagination as only related to painting and they lose that ability to paint, they've lost the main capacity in their life. So the gift is never the thing on the surface, it's the reason why you do it.
That kind of brings us back to, we were actually discussing this last week about a sense of value of ourself, but we don't even know it unless we go out and ask others. And I had given everyone an assignment about going back to our, you know, our family, or maybe our close friends, and asking, you know, if I were no longer here today, what is it that, you know, you would miss about us, you know, kind of thing. Because so many times I don't even know what value I bring to my children, other than, yes, I feed them, you know, I clothe them, make sure they go to school and get their homework done. But other than those obvious things, I don't know what it is that is value. I mean, in my case.
So let me ask you, Anitha,
Yeah.
what to you,
Mhm.
what to you is the most, what do you love more than anything about mothering?
Wait,
What is it
love.
more than any? I mean, there's a lot of stuff, but what is it more than anything you love about mothering?
Depends on the day, honestly, but I guess for me, it's
It
like the,
doesn't.
the
Anitha,
cuddles, the love.
It doesn't depend on the day.
Really? Okay.
What is it you love more than anything about mothering? Go three layers down. I don't want to know the surface level. I love cooking dinners.
Yeah.
What is it underneath the surface? What is it you love more than anything else about mothering?
I don't know, it's just such a blessing. I feel that connection, you know, with
And by connection, you mean?
with my children. There's this love that I never would have imagined had I not had the children.
There it is. There it is. Don't talk. That's it right there. Finding love you never imagined could be there. That is the underlying reason why motherhood matters to you more than any other reason. And so now I know something really important about you, Anitha, because now if I'm building community, I'm gonna get you to engage in activities which help neighbors discover a love for each other that they never knew existed.
Oh,
I can get you involved in all kinds of activities in your life. I have a hunch it's the reason why you've invested so much time developing that software. That's the underlying reason, is you want neighbors to be connected and love each other in a way they never knew was possible before.
wow, that's huge. You're
Yeah,
probably
it
right.
is huge.
Yeah.
You're usually, when people in this moment right now, when we're talking about these things, people, I know the hair on my arm stands up, people get a tear in their eye,
Yeah.
because you're being seen in a way that you usually don't get seen. People look at the surface level Anitha, and they're not seeing the underlying primary gift that you're trying to bring to the world.
Okay, I'm getting goosebumps.
There we go.
Yeah.
Now notice you didn't need to go to a therapist.
I was just about to say, how much do I owe you for this therapy?
You didn't need to talk to an expert. That was about a 2.5 minute conversation we just had, in which you were very clear about why mothering mattered to you more than any other reason. And you also brought to the surface this very important idea about gifts that is from old cultures. We live in a depth culture now, civilized, these industrialized nations mean that anything really important about us is deep and hard to figure out. So we have this whole world of therapy now. The idea of gifts is very different. It says that, Anitha, your primary gifts are sitting on the surface of you, trying to be actively seen and used. They aren't deep. And so we have to get back to thinking about gifts as not a depth-oriented thing, but a quality about Anitha that's immediately available to all of us that we can depend on and ask for.
Wow. All right, we have Christine here. I wanted to know if she had any questions for you or any thoughts.
Hi, Christine.
Hello, hi, Bruce. So yes, I do actually. It taps into that idea of deep versus surface and being recognized. And I feel that there's an awful lot of emphasis placed on giving and gifting, but there's always needs, and Tim brought this up just a little bit, and yeah, certainly Tim did, which is the other side of the equation is the receiving end. And that we do not look very much at the receiving end and what it takes to receive generously and what it takes to receive with a kind of open heart to other people's gifts. And I remember coming to, it's just an interesting experience when I first came to the United States, which was that I felt that everybody around me was on transmit. I was like beaming out. I am, I do, I be. And there was very, very little receive. And it was very disconcerting for quite a long time. It took me quite a long time to actually sort of match the level of transmit and sort of, what can I say, not be so much in the receptive mode, but in the transmit mode, like everybody else. So all transmit. So I would really be interested to hear your thoughts on the receiving and how you bring that receiving into the picture.
So I would just ask you first, what has it taken for you to develop the capacity to receive? What happens inside of you when you know that ability to just receive generously is resting and open in you? What happens in you?
On the occasions when it does happen to me, I feel that I'm in a loving space, but it's not an easy space to get into, honestly. I feel that it's a two-way street. So somebody has to be open to my receiving, if you see what I mean.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So they're not just
Yeah, no, I do. I love what you're bringing up. It's hard for me. I was just thinking of something that happened not long ago, well, before the pandemic, I guess. I was in a restaurant and someone wanted to. We were sharing a meal, and someone wanted to buy me lunch. And my first instinct was to say, "Oh no, I'll get that check. I'd like to pay for it." And I took a deep breath and I looked in the person's eyes and I said, "Thank you." And my whole body changed its feeling state. I love it that you described it as a loving state, because that's what happened to my body. That I'm usually in a much more competitive state, arguing about whether or not I can buy another person lunch, when they're trying to openly be in a state of gratitude with me. I just I was raised in a competitive society, and what I like about what you've said um, is that the giving and receiving of love is the attribute that we somehow have to grow in each one of us in order to combat the competition. And it's hard for me, and I spend my life talking about giving and receiving gifts. Um, I know it's hard for my children. Um, I just think it's a profound question that you're asking. How do you put yourself in a loving state to be a receiver of the generosity of another? And it may be that trust is the underlying most vital component of being able to do that.
I'd like to comment on that. That was, again, really beautiful. One of the things about the receiving end that I'm trying to teach people is to overcome this thing of asking for help. That it's not, you shouldn't, people struggle with asking for help. They have no problems if you say, "Oh, we need volunteers." Yeah, I'm happy to volunteer. I'm happy to help. But then the moment we're saying, when we're in a situation where we need help, we're silent because of shame or pride or whatever it is that society tells us, that, oh, if we ask for help, we'll be seen as weak. The notion men don't ask for directions because they'll be seen as weak. To kind of overcome that I love time banking, which I felt like was my calling, is that whole idea that you're expected to give back to society, but you're also expected to ask for help when you need it. So those things are so intertwined. And to be a successful, truly successful person, individual, community, we need to let down our guard and put what you said in that loving state to be able to ask for help, but also offer help. And they're both loving states.
Yeah, they are. There's a dark underbelly to this whole thing that we're talking about. That a person who is unable to receive help with a generous spirit, it is coming from a place of privilege and is acting as an oppressor. If you don't believe that you are worthy of help and that you give help, you are still in the model of charity and pity, and still in the model of being a part of a privileged class. for me to say, no matter the income that I have, no matter what my abilities are, no matter what the condition of my life is, that I actually need the other breaks the idea of privilege.
So I'd like to follow up on that. There's a meme that's been going around a huge amount here in the States called microaggression.
Yeah.
And probably everybody's heard that term, microaggression. But I feel that there's the sort of the flip side of that is micro acceptance, that in tiny little ways you can actually show acceptance of people's gifts, and that that in itself is a form of gifting, to actually receive the many ways in which so just to give you for instance, I was shopping in a store called Home Goods. I needed to get some lamps, and I was in this store with Home Goods, and they have all these guys running and women, men and women, going around restocking the shelves all the time. And I asked somebody for some help, and he gave me some help, but then I had to go in the next day, and he recognized me the next day, and I recognized that he recognized me. And just out of that little moment, it was like a magical little moment, because I recognized him, he recognized me, we helped each other sort of be in the world in that moment. And it was just what I would call a micro reception, as opposed to a micro aggression. Yeah.
Wow. I just got, right before I got on this call, I just went and got my second vaccine shot at our local pharmacy. The whole vaccine program is being run by retired nurses and doctors in our community. No one's being paid to do it. And so I pulled up, and it's all done through car. And I pulled up and I rolled down my window, and the nurse who came to give me the shot, I rolled down my window and I recognized her. She was the same nurse that gave me my first shot. And there's a lot of nurses, so it was by chance. And I rolled down my window, and she looked at me and said, "I remembered you. You said thank you last time." And I thought, wow, there's this tiny little thing. It's been 3 weeks and 1,000 people, and she remembers me saying thank you to her. So this idea about this micro gratitude stuff, it sticks. People want more of those memories in their story.
It's a good time to, close out with a short, final word from you, and as well as each of our panelists. So Bruce, what message would you like to, have our listeners, take home? Because this was an amazing, I felt very therapeutic session.
Well, it's a wonderful conversation, and I really appreciate the contributions that all of us have made. And I don't have a way to sum it up, because it's, being on Gifts is on a path, and I feel like we're all on a path together. And out of this call, each of us got whatever it is that we needed out of the conversation. And so rather than sum it up, I would just like to say, let's just keep walking.
Martin?
Yeah. What I want to do is share a gift that Bruce gave me the last time I met him. And with just 2 words, he changed the way that I was looking at my work completely. And I think the ramifications of that, where we managed to make an influence, has been really, really important. It was just the 2 words he said. We're talking about isolation and loneliness, and how the system says certain people are hard to reach. Maybe they're easy to ignore, but they're seen as hard to reach. And I was really about how many people who've been labelled hard to reach that our ABCD workers has contacted, or we have found them. Words about making they stay found. And it changed everything that I judged the way that I was working from then on. Because all right, finding these people, isolated people, mainly elderly people living on their own, but we've then got the duty to make sure they stay found. And so I judge what we're doing on, are we actually, okay, we found them, but are we keeping them stay found? Have we built a bridge to something that's accessible to them, that's there, that will respond to when they need it, and is emotionally open to them? They don't have to go through any games to get attention. And I really thanked him for that. I just thought it was the most valuable thing I do, is to share that, because it changed the way I looked at what we were doing at work, and how now I judge. Not we're finding people, we're actually making sure that they stay found. Very profound effect on me.
Tim, any final thoughts?
Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Bruce. A thing that I took, I'm going to take home from here mostly, was that you pointed out that it's not the most obvious thing that you do is really a gift. It's the sort of underlying things that motivate you to do that. So if someone was looking at me and looked at how I spent my life, they'd say, "Oh, look, Tim loves computer programming. He spends his whole life in front of the computer." That's not really my passion. I'm not that passionate about programming. I do it because I'm building something like Anitha is. And so I learned from my own experience, you know, the gifts of patience and perseverance, and the idea that you can have a goal, but you can't ever really plan it right at the beginning, especially if it's a big goal. You can only plan it as you go along. So as you do it, it's theory and practice. So you try and build something and it doesn't work, and then you go back to the drawing board, and your plan evolves along with achieving your goal. And it's what drives you underneath. So for me, it's seeing people use the software. It's people all over the world communicating with each other. It's going to markets and seeing how people relate to each other differently than they would in, say, a conventional market. And events that we have a lot of events and group camps and things like that. And you can see what an impact this is having on people. And that's really what the motivation is. It's seeing the effects of what you do, not just sitting in front of the computer. That's not really, that's not really my motivation. So I think that's very valuable, just to understand that we need to encourage other people who are joining up to look at the underlying motivations, not just the top level skill that they can throw at the system.
Christine, your final thoughts?
So there was so much to reflect on, but I was struck by your comment about we're in a depth culture, and we see all the important things as being deep, and part of what you're thinking about is how these things can be on the surface. We bring those depths to the surface. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking how in different, you mentioned multicultural dimensions to all of this, but as well as depth and surface, there's hidden and exposed. And in different cultures, we hide different things and expose different things. And then you also brought up trust, which is, there's sort of certain things that you can bring up only with some people because you trust them, because otherwise the norm is to hide them rather than to expose them. And so I was thinking about how all of these things play together. And it seems to me that the one thing that sort of unlocks the sort of passage from hidden to exposed and from depth to surface is kindness and gentility. And gentility isn't a word that we use very much actually anymore. It has old-fashioned connotations. But if one thinks of gentility as opposed to sort of brute or rough force, then being gentle with each other, I think, to allow those depths to come up to the surface feels like something we can just pay attention to. It's sort of part of that micro acceptance business, is just being thoughtful and kind is so important. And we see it right now in our new president. He is a thoughtful, kind, and empathic person. And what a difference it's making just to everything to have that person be in the White House. So I think that's what I would say.
Wow, that's beautiful. I just love that phrase. That phrase that you said, I wrote it down. To unlock the passage from hidden to exposed is kindness. That's a beautiful phrase.
Well, this brings us, to the end of our sharing session. Thank you so much, Bruce. If you liked this sharing session, please check us out at www.communityexchangealliance.org or find us on Twitter at com_exchange. You can also participate and partner with us as an individual, a network, a platform, or a community. Thanks again.
No, I don't want to waste what's left. And on we'll go. Through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun.